Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Cool Classics that's known classics. This is episode number 1407 and double 11? 7. No, it was 1413 and Doubleshot number 1307. I have two Marvel trades for this one. This comes from a different app this time. It's not a Pillow, it's Cloud app. Now, you're probably thinking, why am I speaking a little bit lower than usual? And why do I have a headset on my head? Well, it's late, and I figured I really want to get this out of the way with nobody else. And I'm speaking very quietly because people are sleeping. And yes, I do know it's at the midnight, but, well, I'm in the area of the house where nobody's around, so as long as it's not loud, we're fine. Alright, first one to talk about is a book that came out, let me share about this one here. The actual release date for this one. All the way back in 2012. Yes, 2012. What book is it? SpiderMan by Brian Michael Bendis and Sarah Pichelli. Yep. Now, this, of course, is the first time that Peter met Miles for the first time. And this, of course, for Miles' respect, this is before he met his world's version of Peter. Peter, at this point, had been dead in the comics at this point for about a year. Yeah, he died. Now, in the case of Peter's perspective, well, let's see, 2012... Dan Slott was writing Amazing Spider-Man at that point, and I'm trying to think. And this was, let's see, this was a little before 700 came out. This was June. Could have been any major storyline going at that point. So Peter basically has to encounter with Mysterio in here. There's some interesting revelations about this in this miniseries relating to Ultimate Spider-Man. Not much for regular 616 Spider-Man, but a lot of it for Ultimate Spider-Man. So basically, Peter is fighting Mysterio, and then all of a sudden he gets transported to a different New York. And you're like, this looks familiar. That doesn't. What do you see off a distance? The Triskelion. Yep, the Triskelion. And then he just happens, by pure coincidence, he runs into Miles. Gets a fight with him, then eventually they mask each other. And, well, he's like, someone said basically his costume's in bad taste. And Peter's like, what the heck? What is going on here that said my costume's in bad taste? Well, he does eventually find out what happened during the death of Spider-Man storyline. That happened the year prior. Bendis wrote it. The storyline where Peter actually died at the end, getting killed by Norman Osborn. Apparently, though, get this, about 4 years, actually about 3 years after that storyline happened, it was retconned that Peter did not die, but actually was alive. All this time. And you're probably thinking, really? Yeah. So, he gets a brief from somebody with a... Well, when he basically gets info from the supply cart, from a convenience store, and it's a guy trying to rob it, and he's like, really? We're busy here. And of course he does this little webbing. There's the guy, of course, she explains everything. Of course, he reads the article, and fun little factor about the article, when they showed the picture, it's the Mark Bagley cover from issue 1 of Ultimate Spider-Man. Which that was interesting. Really cool little Easter egg there. So eventually, of course, he decides to go visit May Parker, who is alive in this world, and she's living with Gwen Stacy. And Peter, of course, when he meets her at their house, which they're selling for some reason, well, probably because she wasn't moving for Queens, plus also, this was the site basically where from May's perspective, this was the site where both her husband and her nephew were both killed. Ben Parker was killed by the burglar, of course, both in this continuity and in, of course, regular 616. And Peter died fighting off Norman Osborn. And, of course, May slaps him because she probably thinks it's a clone. And eventually she calms down after a bit, and when he sees Gwen. Now, they do have a conversation, and it's a very cool one. I love the back and forth chemistry between these three characters. Gwen explaining that in that universe, aside from the fact he died, he dated Mary Jane Watson, he dated Gwen Stacy, he also dated Kitty Pryde. He's like, Kitty Pryde? Yeah, you two were an item for a while. He's like, really? That's interesting. Never suspected my alternate version basically would date Kitty Pryde. That's what he's probably thinking. And of course, as mentioned, yeah, there was a Gwen. He does not mention here at all that his Gwen died. Yes, died at the hands of Norman Osborn. And of course, when he hears Norman Osborn, like, yeah, he's got Norman Osborn there too. And he's insane there too. Great bits of chemistry there. And of course, he meets up with Ultimate Nick Fury. Yep. And eventually, like, he's like, who are you? It's like, I'm Peter. And eventually he does ask, like, do you have a Nick Fury world? Yeah. And what's he like? He's white. He's like, oh, I feel sorry for him. I thought that was hilarious. The fact that we have a nod to the original Nick Fury that Stan Lee created. I thought that was so hilarious. The fact that he would reference that. Yep. Now, in case you're curious, though, was S.H.I.E.L.D. operating at this point in the Marvel Universe when this miniseries was released? Yes. Yes, it was. It was reactivated after the Sense of Fear itself. It was gone for like a year. And like now, it's been gone in comics now for 4 years. For no reason. No reason at all. So, okay. Who's the main villain in this miniseries, you might ask? Why is Mysterio? You're probably thinking, Mysterio? And yeah, and they also have Ultimate Mysterio here too. Though there's a retcon involved in him. Of course, Bendis loves his retcons. It is retcon in this miniseries that the Mysterio that's been popping up in the Ultimate Verse since Ultimate Comics Spider-Man #1, released back in 2009, has in fact been a robot. Yes, he is an avatar for the 616 Mysterio, who actually does know that Peter Parker's Spider, which you probably thinking, really? At this point, anyways, by the time this miniseries came out, it had been 5 years since the controversial One More Day, and Mysterio, at this point, I think he was like the first villain of Spider-Man to find out that he was Spider-Man, and then eventually also team up with the Ultimates. Yes, he teams up with the Ultimates in this miniseries. And they defeat Mysterio, who actually is in this universe. And Nick Fury's like, why don't he stay here? Because, well, he does know you're Spider-Man. And keep him here means that he doesn't blab his mouth off to the public in your world. And Peter's like, okay, that's fine. And that's the last time Peter sees him for 3 years. Yes, he doesn't pop up again. Like, Spider-Man doesn't encounter him again until I think it's like in the very first story arc for Spider-Man / Deadpool. Though Mysterio himself will still occasionally appear after this. Like, he appeared during Events of Cataclysm. His appearances are occasional and very rare at best. Does he appear in the Miles book? The answer is no, he never appears in the Miles book. Just this miniseries. Aside appearing in Cataclysm, he doesn't really do very much in the universe. He just basically, he's asked about Galactus when he shows up, but that's been pretty much it. Of course, this book has a very famous cliffhanger with this book, where Peter's looking up about what one of the Miles Morales in the universe, and he types it in, and he's shocked to see the result. Now, at this point in time, when this book was released, of course, before Spider-Man 2 was released, this was a dangling plot thread Bendis left hanging for years. Like, wow, it's so shocking the fact that he would leave this cliffhanger for many years. It wouldn't be finally resolved for 5 years. Yeah, not until Spider-Man 2 #1 they finally figured out about the Ultimate version of Miles. Yep. Now, there could be various reasons why Bendis decided not to follow up with this plot thread. Well, for instance, the fact that he was probably too busy. And here's kind of the strange thing. What Culture Comics had this on the list of unresolved plot threads? So this is probably before they released the Ultimate Spider-Man series. Yeah, before Spider-Man 2 came out, it was probably the biggest unresolved plot thread. Now, I think his miniseries was great, and I give this miniseries roughly a 9.5. I give it a 10 out of 10. It's a damn good story. The follow-up is actually quite interesting. I actually own Spider-Man 2. I don't own this book per se. For some reason, my local library never got their hands on this book. I had another Ultimate Spider-Man stuff, but not this one for some reason. Nope. Yeah, in case you're wondering, I'm trying to basically it's gonna take a bit here. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry about this. I should have basically put this back at the beginning of this book, because this is a long book. Oh, if you're curious about Spider-Man, just like the second miniseries, it is also 5 issues. Yep. Though there is follow-up in the second miniseries, though with that one, Miles is already in the regular universe already by that point. Why in the world this was resolved a year later, I have no idea. But at least Bendis managed to resolve this plot there before he finally left Marvel Comics. I think he left in 2018 is when he left. Of course, since then he's been over at DC doing Superman. Alright. Next book is kind of a surprise. Kind of something I would never thought I would review of this show. I have reviewed stuff for this particular type of trade series before, but not for these group of characters. This is Marvel Masterworks The Avengers Volume 1, which collects the first 10 issues of The Avengers. Of course, written by Stan Lee, and of course, artwork drawn by Jack Kirby. Mostly, anyways. He does leave another issue. I think it's 9 is. Of course, these issues are legendary in their classic awesomeness of how these comics are. Like the first issue, the first appearance of the Avengers. Now, the issue itself basically written in the style of the 60s, where it's very hokey and, well, yeah, the cover is fantastic. Of course, the cover of the trade itself is the cover of the very first issue of the series. And, of course, basically, this particular issue has remained canon for years. There's never been any slight alterations to the story. I mean, the only kind of slight alteration they did make was when they did the No Surrender weekly event back in 2017 when they brought in the character Voyager. But that was basically due to alteration of memories. It didn't retcon the issue itself. No, not really. Of course, this book also contains issues that, well, what particularly happened, is a major first appearance in this one? Lots of them. I mean, first issue, first appearance of the Avengers, how they first came together when they fought the first villain, Loki, who was known as the God of Evil. Issue 2 is the debut of the Avengers Mansion, aka Stark Manor. It's technically a debut of the base. How they got their base, well, that is not explained here. That's not explained until the 2000s with the Avengers Classic limited series, where the second story had a backup feature that explained how in the world they got the mansion. Of course, this issue was adapted for an episode of Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Issue 3 issue 2 had Hulk leaving the team. 3 had Hulk team up with Name of the Submariner to fight the Avengers in the start of basically it was leading to the Avengers in the 1970s. Issue 4 had a brief cameo appearance by the Hulk. Hulk also appeared for issue 5, and then he didn't reappear again in the series for quite some time. Yep. Well, 4 is basically infamous because it's the return of Captain America, who publication at that point had not been seen for 10 years. As part of a chronological standpoint, he had not been seen for 20 years. This retcon was later basically fixed in an annual, where it was established several other superheroes operated as Captain America from the period of 1944 to 1953. Where there was a total number of 3 people under the mask: Spirit 76, Jeffrey Mace the Patriot, and William Burnside, who was the Captain America in the 1950s. And of course, this had the first, well, at that point, modern encounter between Nemo the Submariner and Captain America. Though I think it's kind of weird the fact that way it was written. Whereas, like, oh, look, here's the superhero Captain America. Despite the fact these two have known each other for years. But it was 60s. The record was established years later. Of course, Captain himself does join the team at the end of the issue. 5 is the debut of the Lava Men, which they become minor villains after this. 6 is the debut of Baron Zemo and the Masters of Evil. Though this also began a long-running storyline with the original version of Masters of Evil, which continued up until about issue 16. Of course, this also continued into issue number 7, which had a debut of Kang the Conqueror. I think so, right? No, actually, 8. 8 was the debut of Kang the Conqueror, which involved the military for some reason. Of course, 7 was more stuff with, well, of course, Baron Zemo. This, of course, is the original Baron Zemo, not the one currently appears in modern day. This is Baron Hamlet Zemo, not Heinrich Zemo, who appears the current one. 9 is the debut of Simon Williams, aka Wonder Man, who kind of later on just joined the Avengers, but this is debut appearance. Avengers break up. It's not really a big noteworthy story. Yeah. But aside from that, these are really good issues, and I give this one a 10 out of 10. It's just that damn good, these issues, because it's the classic issues of Avengers. I mean, how can they not be good? The only issue I can kind of say of these first 10, they're just, I mean, the first 4, really good issues, pure classic issues. Second issue is kind of hokey because it's the Space Phantom. 5 is just okay. 6, really good issue. 7 and 8, really good. 9 is kind of interesting because it's debut Wonder Man. And 10, just a okay issue. Though, if you notice on the cover, Iron Man is wearing his Mark 1 armor. This armor right here in this picture, which basically you see Giant on the cover, yeah, I believe that's the Mark 3 armor, if I'm not mistaken. My friend Edgar probably would correct me, but that is the Mark 3 armor. This armor had the debut of the faceplate you can easily just pull up. Yeah, instead of just basically taking the whole helmet off. Yeah. But this design, these colors, basically part of Iron Man's color scheme for years. He made some slight alterations over the years, versus the 1980s, where he switched up from the gold to silver, and in 2012 he switched up from red to black. Yeah, and of course also he was switched up briefly in 2014, early 2015 with the symbiote suit. Yep. But yeah, not much else to say about these two trades. They're both really good, and I highly recommend checking them out. Okay, so that's it for Cyclo View, and that's it for this night, because no more time than my videos. I just really want to do this right now. Okay, so tomorrow, as far as I can tell for tomorrow, the only video planned for tomorrow is just One Piece. And that's it, okay? Next video. Bye.